It is the Boneyard podcast, Lake Highlands Boneyard podcast, and I am here with Coach Lonnie Jordan, and in the aftermath of the Highland Park game. And Coach, didn't go the way you wanted. The build-up, the halftime, everything. It was one of those. It was one of those really cool experiences. And so before we get into the game and get into some of the particulars, did you take a moment, like when you ran out there or before the game, to kind of soak all that in? I mean, you've been in some big games. You played at Globe Life against Allen. It's not like you haven't, but that was kind of a neat, especially with two communities that have some crossover and people. And I did see a lot of Lake Highlands fans were tailgating in people's yards and everything. I think they'd been invited. They weren't just showing up in the yards. But I was asking my buddies, like, where do we park over here and stuff? And they're like, just find a street.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I'm like, are they going to tow me or whatever? But anyway, that all worked out. I was a few streets over, got a nice walk in. The visitor side, though, I guess, first of all, how cool was it to see Lake Highlands? I mean, not everybody always goes to these road games, but to show up en masse like they did, that had to be kind of cool to look up and see that.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, our community, traveled so well. And I think the fear behind the ticket fiasco and all the things that went into that, I think everybody, when we said, you need to show up early and make sure that you have a seat, I think they did that. And so the stands filled up really fast. The student section was incredible. And so, that's a playoff atmosphere. That's what you want. That's what we want to create for our kids. That's what, as a head coach, that's what, we're trying to provide that experience for these players. Yeah. And so, just going back to the stage, it was incredible. With Matthew Stafford and Randy Allen's 400 and whatever win it was, he was looking to get that and go in the history books. And so all those things surrounding the game, and I've been in games like that, and I've been in full stadiums and playing for, whether it's, back in, I think 2009, we played here for a district championship, 2008, and the Boneyard was as full as I'd ever seen it. We ended up winning that one in 2 overtimes, and it was just, and one of the most incredible experiences at a home stadium that I'd ever had. But, you think about the playoffs that you've been to and where you're packing stadiums out. So I've been there. But I don't want people to forget that our kids, haven't all been there. Yeah. A lot of the guys on this team have played, they played JV football. Some of them played freshman football last year. And so they haven't seen anything like that. And so what we tried to do, when we got the stadium, the first thing we did, we dropped bags, and then I pulled all the kids out, and we got together in the stadium before any fans were there. And we just, we took a moment to try to visualize what that was going to be like. And we talked to him about, the Matthew Stafford thing. We talked to him about, the portable or temporary bleachers they had in the end zone that was going to have the band in it just blaring. Yeah. And so we tried to, get them to kind of visualize that before, we went out and ran through the tunnel. But it was just, I think so much, it was so much bigger than a lot of them had expected. And so it was, it was great. It was awesome. But, whether or not it affected us, I think to some extent it probably did. And so what we've got to do is learn from that. Where did we get derailed? From our practice plan to game plan to whatever that was. But it took us, a little bit to get our minds back on the importance of just doing our jobs and not, the environment that we were in.
I was listening to, always can work in a Baylor reference. I was listening to Dave Aranda talk about, Baylor played in Provo, and we think maybe this is a big environment for high schoolers. It happens at the collegiate level too. Mm-hmm. And he was saying he got some of those defensive huddles, special teams huddles, and was seeing what he called some big eyes. And guys were just, and they got caught up in all of it, and they kind of slugged it out and took it to overtime, but it did a huge home crowd did impact, some of the players. Now, I got to say, I was really proud, and I was like a lot of the fans. I was sitting up there, and by the way, it was kind of fun to hear some of you were talking about the Matthew Stafford part of it. We had like some, let's say, second or third grade boys sitting behind us. And when it came time, and it's just so cool, honestly, to see, because they're not trying to be cool yet. These kids were just up there having a good time. And when it came time for them to bring Matt Stafford out, which you kind of forget, even for these little kids, it's a huge deal to see an NFL quarterback who's just won a Super Bowl. And these were our kids, these were Lake Highlands, and they started like chanting his name. And it was just kind of neat to see. And so the only issue was they have not updated the PA system on the visitor side in many years there at Highlander Stadium, so we couldn't hear anything over there. And one thing we might want to think about at Lake Highlands is perhaps growing a tree in front of the visitors stands where they can't see the scoreboard, because that's what they did over there. Yeah. And so, all you have to do is kind of trim it a little bit, but it's kind of a purposeful thing. There's a tree to make it impossible for the fans to see portions of the scoreboard. So we get started, and I would say that's about as poor a start as it could have been. So again, you've got to just stay in the moment and deal with what's been put, but what was kind of going through your mind as they were moving it, and there was a special teams thing. There was just some things early that really kind of put you behind the 8 ball. Yeah,
so again, we lost the toss, and Coach Allen deferred, so we were going to get the ball first, which is fine. But then they kicked it to us, and I think it was the first. We're looking at the video this weekend, grading it. I think the first 3 or 4 plays, the first 4 plays we ran, we had poor execution, and from you're running. Just like Highland Park's running RPOs, we're running RPOs. Yeah. And so we had the run pass option, and we just kept choosing wrong. So the looks that we had shown and the looks that we had, we weren't attacking it properly. And so in that, again, that's you talk about the big eyes in the huddle. I think that's what it was. We were second guessing ourselves, our players were second guessing themselves, and really making poor decisions there at the beginning. And so it did, it put us in a hole, and they went down and scored. I think they had 2 scores. So our first 2 drives were very poor, and then finally we got things going. And so at halftime for me, it was going back to those drives where we had success, where we drove down the field. Deontay Dean broke ones down the sideline and scored. We had some success running the football. Our offensive line, I thought, did an incredible job. And that's a group that we've been kind of hoping would come along. Yeah. Well, they had by far their best game of the year, which is just, you look at how this all turned out, and there are some positives to come out of it. But I think the psychology of the game, is what we need to work on, and part of that's just maturing as a player and that sort of thing. But yeah, we did not come out, and we did not make good decisions in the beginning. But again, we had a couple of drives in there that were probably as good a drives as anybody's had against them all year. Yeah. We just have to figure out how to sustain that, and we got to build the confidence that we can do that. But you're not ever going to do those things if in order to grow, you got to fail, and so. Not that that's what any of us wanted to do was lose a ball game, especially like that. But as long as we can go back and look at the video and learn from it, we talked to him today about practice last week and how it wasn't as sharp as it needed to be. The effort wasn't as great as it needed to be. And then of course, if you don't practice being perfect, then you're going to have a really hard time being perfect when they flip those lights on. Yeah. If you don't practice intensity, it's going to be hard for you to be intense on Friday night. So. I thought today's practice was phenomenal. I thought our kids did really well. But it really is all about a growth mindset. How do we take that loss, which was, to some of us, and I'm sure there's a lot of, it was kind of embarrassing we've worked really hard, and we've got what we feel are good players, and we went out there and we didn't show that to the world. So we're working on cleaning that up. We're going to learn from those mistakes, and then hopefully we'll come out against Jesuit on Friday and show folks something completely different.
Well, I got the early in the game there was a play, to your point, where Tripp had the O-line did a tremendous job. I don't know if they're rushing three or what, but he kind of had a long time. And that's when I got a little worried, I have to admit, because Tripp just couldn't find anybody. I don't know if anybody got open. And by the way, your prediction did come true. I think you told me number 9. Wasn't that the one you said to watch?
Yeah.
And I mean, like early on, he was good. And then I think he hit Ian early, like up underneath the helmet. And I thought, oh my gosh, this guy. But in time, some of the routes started to come open and everything. What did you do, like on those drives that started to be successful? Was it just a matter of just making the right reads? Or was there a couple of tweaks that you made to get the offense going? On those 2 drives.
Yeah, no, it was just our kids taking a deep breath and reading it like it was supposed to be read. I mean, that was ultimately it. The play that you're talking about, where we had pretty good protection, and Tripp's holding on to the ball, he just missed his outlet. He didn't see his outlet, and so he was focused on the main read and never went to his secondary read, and so then we began to ad lib, and that'll happen a lot in a game like this. When I guess emotions are high and adrenaline is high. Sometimes it's hard to just calm things down and focus on, because football is really not that difficult a game, but it takes practice to get there. And so, anyway, the drives we had that were successful, we didn't call any different plays than we called in those first couple of drives. It was just us being able to take a deep breath, move forward and make the right reads.
All right, on the defensive side, Highland Park's hitting some big-time downfield passes. One of them, your guy who's been so good for you, was in position. I mean, they had some big wide receivers that put you in tough spots, and they high-pointed the ball extremely well. There were times later in the game, I think Carson Klein goes up there and gets a pick around the goal line. I mean, your safety play's been so good this year. But I guess what I'm thinking is the defense has been your calling card through the first 2 games of the season in a lot of ways. The offense has played well at times, but the defense has been superb. And this is the first time, obviously this passing game, they've been doing this for years upon years. What did you see happening? And then later, what were you kind of able to do? I thought later on, once the quarterback took some hits, it was like, oh wait, I gotta worry about this. I mean, looking at the film and looking back, what did you see about the coverages, or that allowed them to have as much success as they did?
And we always do. I mean, we went back and looked at it, and we don't really second guess ourselves, but what could we have done here? And I think really at the end of the day, we feel really good about what we called, and for the most part, the coverages were pretty good. I mean, those kids made contested catches. You take the one where Chung Lin is and Chung's 5'6" and their receiver 6'3", and he goes up and he's right there, and it was a really difficult catch for that kid, but he made it. And if you go back and watch the film, we are in phase. We've got defenders in phase. They're just making catches that a lot of high school kids don't make.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of the credit goes to, the type of athletes they have, and of course, their coaches do a great job. Randy does a great job over there, but they're very skilled. And we busted some coverages, and we had some really good routes that turned a kid or two around at times, and those things are going to happen, especially the higher level of ball you play. One of the things we talk to our kids about is this is it's not just a playoff atmosphere, but this is a really good football team, and so again, for us, we've got to get better at at defending those things. If it's a man coverage situation, we've got to get better. And to your point, our defensive kids have done a great job all year. This one got out of hand, and when that momentum starts to shift, you'll see crazy things happen in a football game, and that's on me. I've got to figure out a way to to turn that ship once it gets going that direction. But it doesn't turn out like it did if we don't give them so many opportunities. Whether it's the punt muff, right, and they get the ball, the fumble on the kickoff coming out, right. We kicked. We got the safety, which was a busted protection, on us, but we ended up getting the safety. And then we punt the ball back to them on that kickoff, and the ball's sitting there, and we don't get on it. It was an opportunity for us to get. So we didn't take advantage of opportunities to whether it was maintain possession. Yeah. And we talked about it going in. When you play a really good team, we have to limit their possessions, and we didn't do it.
Yeah. Okay, that play, I'm glad you brought that up, because there was some thought that, like on a kickoff, obviously we know what an onside kick looks like. We know when there's a live ball, but after a safety, when you get that free kick, and of course you can punt it, or you can elect to kick that ball off. So you're saying on that punt, it bouncing around, they treated it like a normal punt. Your guys could have just jumped on that,
yes,
and that was your ball.
That was it's a kickoff that we have the. Yeah, we have the option to punt it if we choose, and we wanted to, just because of hang time. It would limit return yards, that sort of thing. Yeah. But it was, and I'm sure Randy Allen's having the same conversation with his staff. His kids weren't sure what to do. Our kids weren't sure what to do, and that falls squarely on me. And so we know what to do now.
Yeah. You would think my mastery of the rule book, I would have known, but I was up there and they were looking to me. Some of the guys were like, hey, when my wife was asking me, and I said, I think on a punt, if it was a kick, I didn't have a total feel for that either, but I'm glad to know that.
We rely on our officials a lot. There's so many interpretations of different rules. So, throughout the course of a game or pre-game, I'll grab an official and say, okay, talk to me about this. Tell me what the ruling is here. And every year there's rule changes and there's tweaks to rules, and the game is not the same game it was 10 years ago. It's not the same game it was 5 years ago, and so we have to kind of stay up on that. And I am no rules expert. I rely on our officials to make sure, to let us know. Just kind of the ins and outs of all those things.
All right, in the one play in the first half, there was just an obvious hold that was missed. And listen, I was all of us in the stands were calling that one out. And it just, sometimes, I think that's what angers fans, and I'm sure coaches, is when it happens, it's like refs are going to miss calls. But when the guy's like standing right there and it seems egregious, that's a hard one. Well, they called a 15-yard penalty on the sideline, and that at that point the thought is Highland Park doesn't need any help. I mean, they're moving the ball, but you were kind of hanging in there, and that was an opportunity to hopefully get a stop, and that just marches them right down there in your territory. You've said this before on the podcast that's tough. Sometimes you're talking to officials, or maybe you have your headset off, and then you also know that your coaches are talking to the officials. I would assume you've had to visit with some of your coaches on that front.
Yeah, that wasn't good. We shouldn't. A coach should never get a penalty, and we did on that drive. Again, contesting a call. And you and I have talked off camera a little bit just about this is a passionate game. And I've got passionate coaches that they want to win. They're competitors. They want to look for every advantage to win, and they certainly don't want to lose an advantage. Right? There's rules, and the expectation is that the game's going to be fair on both sides, that the game's going to be called equally or fairly on both sides, and sometimes our coaches get, and kids too, right? They feel like feel like we're getting all the penalties, and it's always happening to us. And I mean, ultimately we have no control over how that's being done. And so part of that, when we talk to kids and even when I talk to my coaches, is we have to control the controllables, and that is out of our control. And do we want to contest that? Absolutely, but there's a right way to do it. And and I think we were a little too aggressive in the way we did it. So so we'll work on that. And and I think we talked last week or a couple weeks ago. We're constantly trying to build relationships with officials, and partly just because I get that their job is difficult and we need them, and the game needs them. But it does not change the fact that it gets frustrating.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
some of us kind of felt like Highland Park had built some really good relationships with them.
Yeah.
But it was okay. So it's 30-14, and you get the ball. You get the ball to start the second half, and on top of they call a block in the back or something on that play, but then your guy, who obviously has all kinds of speed, gets loose. And I mean, sometimes you're just like, okay, sometimes it's better to have the faster guy. But again, I don't want to call out specific players. In that case, one of the things you've worked on is ball security. And I was thinking about that as I watched him kind of, the ball was kind of slinging out. Yeah. And I'm sure, again, that's a teaching moment you don't want to have, but there's an opportunity, and it's just, I know that had to be a huge point, like halftime. We're getting the ball. We have a chance to go down here and make this, 30-21, because y'all had been moving the ball. That was the start of some things that kind of snowballed on you.
Yeah. Well, we're in at halftime, and we're down 16 at halftime, and we'd started playing better, with the exception of the safety thing that happened. I mean, we had started playing better.
Yeah.
We had some confidence in our offensive line. We had some confidence in our run game. We knew that our passing schemes were good. So, coming out of the locker room at halftime, first of all, I didn't think we were ever going to get to come out of the locker room because halftime was so long. But when we did finally come out, we're talking to the kids about, look, we get the ball first. We're going to march this thing down. We're going to stick it in. The defense has made their adjustments at halftime. They're going to get a stop, and within 3 series, we're going to be right in this thing. We're going to have, the game's going to be tied up. We already had 2-point play ready to go. So it was all, that was the master plan. And then, of course, we fumbled the kickoff. And as frustrating as it is for me, nobody hurt more after that than that player.
Yeah.
Because he knew, right? He knew that it's something that we have stressed, and it's something that we've talked about, and he knows how important it is. And it happened. No different than our when they punted the ball to us and we muffed it. That's an unbelievable kid. And I went out on the field before Highland Park had gotten their offense back out there, and I pulled him aside and I said, "Hey, buddy," I said, "we believe in you, and we love you." And he was down. But it's these are things that we're going to get through, and it is it's the third ball game of the year, and it was a high-powered, high-potent football team that we were playing, and we made mistakes, and we know we've got to clean those up. And I have all the faith in the world, and the coaching staff and our kids, that those things are going to get cleaned up.
What were you, when it was 38-14, you elected to go for a field goal, and my thought was probably you wanted to get it to 3 scores, or, again, I don't mean to try to provide answers for you, but I was just thinking, because obviously, it's like, okay, they're scoring a bunch, need a touchdown. But at the same time, want to feel good about a drive. What was your thought process? You're down there on the 4 or 5 yard line. Yeah.
That's one of those. That's one of those decisions that could go either way. I mean, really, for us, we had that little, however many plays it was. We're down there in the red zone. Mm-hmm. We throw a ball into the back of the end zone. Yeah. Could have been caught. We drop it. We get a penalty. It was just kind of back and forth. We kept getting backed up. We missed a play. we'd run the ball back down there again, and we would get close, and you get down to this fourth. And I don't know with the penalties and different things how many plays we had down in that area on that drive, but at some point we just got to get some points on the board. And so maybe the confidence in whatever that one play having to happen and getting you 6 points as opposed to 3. For me, I didn't have confidence in that at that time, and I do have confidence in our field goal team. And of course, we miss it, right? Again, goes back to me. We've missed 2 field goals this year. Both of them have been inside the 5, and that's
from that same hash, right?
So,
for whatever reason.
And I talked to our special teams coach. That is not, and I know better, right? But that's not something that we've really worked on. We work on our PATs, and then we work on longer field goals from different hashes, middle of the field, all the things. But we have not worked on field goals inside the 5 on the left hash. Well, I got to fix that, And I mean, Shalom has a great leg, but that's a different angle that he's got to.
Yeah.
So that one's not on Shalom. Coach Jordan's gonna, we're gonna extend practice a little bit and kick some really short field goals.
Short, but you hope you don't have to. But you may.
And again, right or wrong on that decision, so far this year, as our offense starts to gel and gets a little more mature and starts putting more yardage out there and more points on the board, you stop doing things like that. But I don't know in my career how many field goals I've kicked from the 5, because typically I'd be calling to get into the end zone there, even if it's 4th down. But we needed, I think we needed points. We needed to kick. I didn't want to give them the ball right there. So anyway, is what it is.
I thought Shalom's punts were. I mean, you don't want to have to punt, but when you do, he's a weapon.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's probably, and we talk about him on every podcast, but he's probably one of the most versatile weapons in the Metroplex right now. Could probably make a 45-yard field goal for you if asked to do it, and then might make 15 tackles for you.
Yep.
I mean, that's pretty.
And he can change. Yeah, and then he can punt, so he changes. And we're going to get to the point where field position, we're going to own field position. We're going to win that battle in the ball game, and Shalom gives us that, whether it's kicking off and he can get a touchback on the other end, or he can hit a 50-yard punt with an incredible hang time that allows us to cover, or kicking field goals. But and his leg is strong enough that it's really changed our red zone. You start thinking about what a red zone is, and I think, if you were to buy a book, it would say 20-yard line's a red zone. Well, it's really kind of a score zone. When do you feel like you have points? And that changes the way that you start processing and calling plays. Yeah,
it's and you have a quick kick. I'm thinking back through all the football I've watched, but Tripp put one down there. He's been working on his Australian, having the ball, bounce and everything.
Yeah.
So that's a weapon as well. All right, so you got to make sure after a game like that, there's so much emotion goes into it. You wanted it to just be one game. It turned into a big game for the community and all. But Jesuit, proud program, a fun history. I mean, my gosh, you've had some. Last year was a hellacious back and forth affair. How do you kind of make sure this week that one loss doesn't turn into 2? I guess the good thing is, this is a team with some history and I've had some good battles with, so I don't think it's a hard team to get up for. But how do you kind of guard against having one game not go your way and turn into another loss?
Well, I think it's just breaking it down. I mean, we've got to compartmentalize what Highland Park is Highland Park, and that's in the past. We talked about it earlier here. We want to watch that video. We want to grade the video. We want to assess where we did good things, and we want to look at all the things that we didn't do well. And now we've got to learn from that. We've got to teach from that. And so today, Monday, was about that. This weekend, the coaches are getting plans together to help fix those things. And so the game is, and maybe I say it maybe too much, but the game is not about Jesuit. The game's about us. And Lake Highlands, when we are hitting on all cylinders, we're going to be really, really good. We got to figure out how to get there. And so we have, we've got all the plays ready for Jesuit and all the defensive schemes, all of those things, but we've got to be able to execute those things. So that's what the focus is. Today in practice, and again, we had a good practice today, but it was about what is important right now. And it's not about the scoreboard at 10 o'clock at night on Friday night against Jesuit. That's not the important thing. The important thing right now is that we get better, from what we learned last week, and that we start practicing with a little more intensity. We start having a little passion and purpose in the things that we do, so that we're preparing ourselves to go to war on Friday night.
All right, and what do you see from your initial, you guys have advanced scouts and you all look at things, weeks in advance. What this version of Jesuit, what are they doing? Is it a very similar team to the past? Is there anything different? What are you kind of seeing from them, and what will be the keys?
They're a little different in some areas defensively on the back end. Secondary wise, they do a few more things than what we've seen them do in the past, but for the most part, they're a lot like Highland Park in that, they do what they do. They've got a great offense, always do. They've got a quarterback that he throws it really well. He can run the ball. So he's got a running back that returns from last year. He's got a receiver that returns from last year. And so they're good. They're going to be able to move the ball around. They put points up on the board. They had a great game against Pierce this last week. Defensively, they're always strong. They're one of the top rush defenses in the Metroplex, and always are. They run to the wall. They run to the ball well. They pursue well. They're physical. It's pretty much a typical Jesuit team, and it was fun talking to our kids about it today, because this is known, right? Highland Park's a little unknown to some of our kids. There's the tradition, history, all that stuff, but they had never really played them. Well, Jesuit, we played the last couple of years, and so in 2020. We beat them. 2020, 2021, both of those games were won by less than a touchdown. And in 2020, we beat them and go on to be district champions. And in 2021, they beat us and go on to be district champions. Yeah. And so there's the games we've played against Jesuit have been meaningful, big time games. And so I don't think we're going to have a hard time getting our kids up for it. I just want to make sure that we are mentally prepared for it, right? Now, the great thing about this, we're at home. It's elementary night, which is always fun. When we invite our elementary kids out, they pack this place. So there will be hundreds and hundreds of little future Wildcats at the stadium, and so I think that's fun for our kids. It's fun for to see the stands filled up, and so we'll have a great home environment here on Friday.
All right, elementary night, yes, just racing all over the place, people chasing. I remember when mine, it's funny, our kids are now, you got two in college, or maybe one almost out of college, and a daughter that plays volleyball and is really accomplished, a spree. You've become a very fine arts dad, although I didn't see you at the choir meeting the other night. I don't want to make too much of that. I did want to say, by the way, our resident historian, Glenn Gant, weighs in with, you have a 16 game, I don't want to jinx anything, home streak, and a 12 game home district streak going, which is nice, and then 4 and 6 all time against Jesuits. So we kind of need to make up the ground here a little bit, but some of that goes back to, it's interesting history. I kind of forgotten all that happened, that I think it was straight Jesuit out of Houston, and Jesuit, suddenly that was a big deal when they were allowed to play UIL, and the courts were involved in all of that. And I think maybe even on your first run through Lake Highlands, did y'all face them at one point when you were with Scott?
No, when I left, they came into the district, so it was about probably 2010 or 11 that they got aligned over there.
Yeah, but I remember that being a big deal, and they wanted to prove themselves at this kind of level. Now, again, the tricky part of that is, I don't know, sometimes with private schools, I won't even go down that route, but kids end up,
You've probably got some listeners that have kids going to school over there.
Oh yeah. One's a kicker. One of my buddies is a big time kicker for them. Yeah. It should be kicking right here, but we won't get into that.
Yeah. Well, we can't. Love to have him back though.
Yeah. I'll work on that. We're supposed to get together. I'll see if I can lobby a little bit for that. Okay. One of the favorite parts of the podcast has become the unsung hero. And by the way, brought to you the unsung hero and our presenting sponsor, and Mike Black has done an incredible job for us. Eagle Cleanup, and he's the reason we can do this. And in fact, other people are sort of wanting to get involved, and we'll kind of put you with Mike. We figured out a way to maybe make that happen. But basically, you've noticed some of our local builders, Lonnie, some of these houses that are just beautiful going up. Marable Homes, I've noticed, is doing a lot of those. But Mike Black and his crew can come in, clean a work site, haul everything off. And then, of course, if you're advertising an area, we've seen all these apartments going up around over there at Skillman and Walnut Hill. Eagle Cleanup can sort of do all of that and clear out everything. So Mike Black, we appreciate him being a part of things, and he's a huge fan. I did have to say, I looked up at the back of the stands, and I was up there I was kind of at the top, but all these old Lake Highlands players and alums were standing all along there, and I mean, it was kind of neat. And some of those guys live in Highland Park and all of that. And then some of them, by the way, I think got thirsty in the second half and were able to watch the game on TV from right over there in Highland Park, just in the neighborhood. I think they just wanted to have a Topo Chico or something. Surely didn't mix anything with that, but had a good time out there, so it's a lot of fun. But let's do our unsung hero of the week. We've had some really good ones. We've got a lot of good feedback on this. And who do we have this week?
Okay, so this week, Matt, I'm going to talk about a group of kids, that they assist the football staff. They actually work year round, but during football season, we need more of them. So we're going to talk about the training staff today.
Oh, nice.
The hardest working people probably on campus. I mean, they work the same hours for the most part that the football players do. They don't get accolades, they don't score touchdowns, they don't do that, but they are there, to make sure that we have water. They're taping our players before practices. They tape players before game. They help with treatment. They're always there. And when we say games, there's of course Friday night, which is the big show, but Thursday night we've got 4 games going on every Thursday night, and these trainers are going to each of those games. So they work extremely hard. I'm gonna mention the names of our senior trainers tonight, but before I do that, I wanted to talk about our licensed athletic trainers that are here on staff. And so we have Jessica Nelson Welch, and Jessica's been here 19 years. Jessica is, again, she's our head trainer. She's the best in the business. I mean, she loves kids. One of the things that I want the parents to know, and this comes up quite a bit. I mean, we play a physical game, and so these kids they'll twist an ankle, they'll have some knee pain, or they'll do something to their shoulder. We want to make sure that all our kids get to Jessica Welch before they go to the doctor. Jessica is trained in treatment and rehab, and she can assess those injuries to determine whether or not they're acute and you need to go have an X-ray or an MRI or something, she'll know exactly what it is, and we can treat this here and have you back, at practice in a day or two. So she does a great job. Interestingly enough, Jessica is married to a Dallas ISD trainer, so there are 2 trainers in that home. And then our assistant trainer is Richard Macera. And Richard is in his 7th year at Lake Highlands. He's a UT Arlington grad, master's from University of Central Missouri. His wife is also an athletic trainer in Grand Prairie. I think she's at South Grand Prairie. So it's funny how they stick together like that. But those guys do, Richard Macera, Jessica Nelson Welch do an absolutely wonderful job, and we send all of our medical stuff to them. Now, her senior trainers, so our student trainers, are Katie Holmes, Madison Lawrence, Destiny Burks, Desiree Choate, Lindsay Gerald, Harmony Wigfall, and Tatiana Drew. And Tatiana's also in Esprit. But anyway, these girls have been amazing. And if you ever come to one of our practices, you'll see them. They're all over the field with water and tape and Band-Aids and all the things. So anyway, thank you to all that our athletic training staff does.
All right, Lindsey Gerald's dad's a buddy of mine, and that's a talented group that you just mentioned. And I would never use this podcast for personal gain, but can you ask Jessica if she knows anything about tennis elbow? Would that be something you could you could bring up with her?
Well, and fortunately I've got a young staff, but the guys that are older on our staff do sometimes frequent the training room. You'll see some of these older coaches coming out with ice bags on, and they're getting stem treatments or whatever it is. But that's one of the perks of, and I can probably get you in, Matt. I'll say a good word.
See what you can do. Been struggling in that area. Well, this is going to be fun. This is going to be another exciting matchup, and I appreciate it. I mean, the thing is, you'd always rather be doing this after a win, but the thought I had this week or this weekend was rather have that happen now than in the playoffs, and you're working towards something bigger. And I think once you kind of get away from the fog of the night these things happen, you can start to think, and I ran into one of your players and was struck by, these guys are resilient, and some of them are mature enough to already have some pretty good perspective and enjoyed the experience. But I don't know. I think sometimes as fans, we're like, oh man, how do you get past that? And we're not out with y'all for the next 6 days and all the things, and you got to build them back up and get the confidence and everything. But I don't sense that you have a team that lacks for confidence, So I think everything's gonna be okay. So good luck. On Friday, and we'll be out there, and then we'll have another episode next Monday of the Lake Highlands Boneyard podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate you guys and all that you do. We've had so many folks just reach out and say how much they've enjoyed it, and so we'll see how it goes this week after a loss. Maybe hopefully they still enjoy the podcast. But we'll get us a win next week, and it'll be fun again. How about that?
We've got all our sponsors locked in. They can't get out. On Mike, you got to hang with us. We're going to win this week, but this is I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. Appreciate Frito Nation Productions, Mark Frito Friedman, very famous radio man around here for doing his good work, and we appreciate him and everybody who's a part of this. By the way, the volleyball team, are they?
Oh my goodness!
What are we doing there?
Okay,
I mean, since you're very plugged into that whole scene.
So volleyball is at home tomorrow night, so Tuesday night.
Okay.
Depending on when you're listening to this, Tuesday night, volleyball's at home versus Richardson High School. It's Teacher Appreciation Night. It should be a great matchup between us and Richardson. So you need to pack the gym for that one. We'll be talking to our football players, try to get some of those guys out there to create a student section. And anyway, big volleyball game here tomorrow night. They played Bertner last Friday, swept them in 3. So that was a great start to district.
I mean, that's as close as Bertner's ever been to us.
Another side note is so tomorrow night you've got Lake Highlands volleyball playing Richardson here at home, and then out at Wildcat Ram is the Lake Highlands Junior High, Forest Meadow Junior High football scrimmage. It starts at 6 o'clock, so 6 to 8 you've got junior high scrimmage at Wildcat Ram, and then I think 6:30 is tip off, however you say that in volleyball. But they start at 6:30. Volleyball match.
First.
I'll be at both.
Between the two of us, we're not going to be able to do any of it. I like it though. I like watching it, and that will be fun to watch. And it's amazing the strategy that goes into it. And I mean, even the fact I remember seeing in junior high the A team a few years ago, where like they were already doing the whole thing where one hitter is faking it, and I'm like, wait, they're doing this in junior high, and
Yeah.
I think they start that pretty early, but
Yeah.
it's pretty.
You wouldn't think it could be that complicated. There's only 6 girls out there, but it's kind of hard to stay up with.
But there's a libero,
And
there's a setter, and there's a lot of
Yeah,
you and I should we do a volleyball podcast? Like maybe branch off.
Well, it would be like a blooper show.
That's right.
It wouldn't be good.
That's
We
right.
probably need to stop.
Yeah, we may edit this last part out. No, it's been fun. It is the Lake Highlands Boneyard podcast, live from the MAC. We will see you next week.